every student deserves a path to a living wage. In Dallas County and across Texas, we're aligning purpose, passion, people, and systems with the skills needed for today's workforce. This is Promise to Paycheck, a new podcast from the Economic Mobility Center, with your host, Dr. Eric Ban.
Welcome to Promise to Paycheck. This is our inaugural episode. We're with Dr. Justin Lonon of Dallas College and Todd Williams of the Commit Partnership. We're excited to really talk about the Dallas County promise of economic mobility and the why, the who, the how, and where we're going. And just really appreciate Todd Williams, Chairman, CEO of the Commit Partnership here, and Dr. Justin Lonon, Chancellor of Dallas College. Welcome to the show. Glad to be here.
Great to be here.
And just throwing out the first question, what do you hope listeners walk away with in terms of us talking about the framing of the promise of economic mobility here in Dallas County? So, Justin, I'll start with you.
Well, first of all, great to be here and to engage in this conversation. I hope that listeners understand that there is a path of opportunity for people in our community. That there's a path for students that may think that higher education, is not in their future. And it absolutely is in their future, can be in their future. And then also hope that the community recognizes what an amazing network of support that we have within this work together with Dallas College and Commit and our partners across the region, that everybody just leaning in together to try to get people across that bridge of opportunity.
Great. Todd?
I hope that they'll understand that there is a tremendous amount of regional support and strong commitment to attacking this problem in front of us. Like many of you, probably, I got to live the American dream personally. I want to see that American dream filled out for every kid in Dallas County. It's going to take a collective effort of all of us to do it with all resources and our network and policy and all sorts of things. But I'm incredibly encouraged by what has been put together so far, and probably even more encouraged about where we're going.
Great. Just doubling down on the why, Commits started 2012, and thinking about the evolution of this work as a county, maybe just revisiting the why question for you, thinking about the evolution of this work and giving you an opportunity to, tell the Commit story in the context of why are you an anchor partner in driving this work forward?
I think the reason that Commit was formed was really to basically try and create almost, the fancy phrase is collective impact. But how could we all define a mutual goal that we want to try and accomplish? And then what would it take for us to accomplish that together? And that we're constantly reinforcing each other's actions. We're talking about what the data is telling us. And we're trying to figure out, is the problem a resource issue? Is it a barrier or a systemic issue? Is it a incentive issue, et cetera? And how do we attack that? Roughly 3 or 4 years ago, we set a goal with our 200 plus partners that we were going to double living wage attainment in this region by the year 2040. And post-secondary completion is a critical component of that. And so I can still remember the visit to go see the Tennessee Promise back in 2017 with Justin's predecessor, Chancellor May, and thinking, we can do this. We can absolutely do this because of the mutual reinforcement of all of our actions in this. And so I think it's critically important for Commit to be a partner in this. And I just want to make sure, but it's only going to get solved if we're all working and rowing in the same direction together.
Yeah. And Justin, maybe going back to the start of the promise in 2017, initiated a lot of innovation out of Dallas College, one of the largest community college systems in the country, Paycheck, Promise, a lot of things going on. What's your why, and how does Dallas College think about this work and the evolution of this work?
Well, certainly starting with the why, Dallas College is the bridge to economic mobility and prosperity for those seeking to get into the educational pipeline, and then for business employers seeking to build their workforce pipeline. We are right at that intersection. And so that's why we exist as an open door access institution to bring people into those doors wherever they are in life, at whatever point in their journey they are, that they're on. And so as it relates to the promise, I'm going to go back even further than 2017. I'm really going to go back into the late 1990s when Dallas College launched the Rising Star Scholarship Program. At that time, I was working in the mayor's office, and so I remember being at that launch, at that kickoff, that essentially said that for students that met certain criteria and graduated from high school in Dallas County could come to Dallas College for free. And so we had a successful scholarship program for a number of years that then when there was a larger national conversation about free community college, and is 12th grade still the marker that made sense, or do people need some additional credentials and skills beyond that? And so we really began to think about how do we build on the Rising Star Scholarship Campaign? Can we find the right partner to help us go even further with that? And so that's why we were so excited when Commit partnered with this. And the other part is that we didn't want it to be just about Dallas College. Mm-hmm. We wanted people to have the path of opportunity wherever they may need to get to. And so bringing in university partners and others into this that could open up those new doors for students as well. And so that's why we've been so invested in this work. That's why we're so proud of the work that we've done together over these last several years, and so excited about the work that we're building on from there.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun in 2017, and as Commit often does, shows up in that space. Commit has, incubated the promise for many years, and we're to a place now where we're now placing it in, kind of its own nonprofit space and center. Yep. So just thinking about the evolution of that, and maybe going back to Todd, just thinking about this journey from 2017, a lot of policy has been passed and a lot of opportunities for improving student outcomes and having the sustainable funding to support that. So can you kind of talk about the policy context that we're under now and maybe some of the bets we're making in Dallas County related to things like advising or
Sure.
Data, the importance of data?
Yeah, I think the challenge is that we've tried to really look at all this problem as kind of a continuous improvement process. And part of it we also knew was that incentives needed to change and that we needed to resource it because this was not a problem that could be solved long-term by philanthropy. So I was blessed to serve on a year-long commission in 2018 to reform the K-12 funding system. And one of the key provisions that we put in that policy was the fact that to make sure that every school district knew that for every student who graduated assessed as ready, not needing remediation, and then successfully transitioned to post-secondary enrollment or industry certification or the military, that district would receive anywhere between $3,000 and now $9,000 per student. When you add it all up, that's upwards of $1.5 billion, $1.6 billion for the region. That's a tremendous amount of resourcing to effectively make sure that we do this well, and we're going to build into it over time. Fast forward 4 years later, then we go through the same process, state year-long commission to focus on community college. Outcomes funding is also placed into that ultimate legislation. And it's important to note that both those pieces of legislation, HB 3 and K-12 and HB 8 for community colleges, were passed almost unanimously in both chambers. I think there was maybe one negative vote out of 180 votes. So strong statewide support for this effort. And ultimately, so now I kind of view the outcomes funding as the fuel that effectively can sustain this over time. And we've been using and raising philanthropy to kind of bridge the incremental cost to build the infrastructure that we need through Education's Freedom, which is the centralized advising entity that most of our districts are outsourcing their advising to so that we can provide year-round advising that is both college and career because many of our kids go straight into work. We want to make sure they've got the best workforce training that enables them to earn a family-sustaining wage. But I just think the key thing to understand is that this is a continuous improvement process using philanthropy to ultimately bridge into long-term public funding to sustain this work in a very meaningful way.
Great. Yeah, that's super exciting. And then, thinking about Dallas College, your role from K-12 partnerships, again, significant work in, nationally leading Paycheck, at scale. among other things, with your K-12 partners, and now thinking about your university work with transfer, community organizations, employers. How is Dallas College showing up in this work, more and more, and what is that looking like?
Well, I mean, first of all, we see ourselves in the middle of that continuum, certainly with K through 12 and our university partners. And so, yes, we have invested, significantly over the last dozen or so years to expand that pipeline of opportunity for high school students through our early college, high school, Paycheck, dual credit programs. We have about 30,000 dual credit students. So we're the largest provider of dual credit in the state. And when I say invest, I do mean invest because we waive the cost of that dual credit tuition for those students. Because we don't want that to be a barrier. So we've invested heavily. And one of the things that has certainly, one of the things I'll speak to is the intentionality around doing that, where you have different systems coming together, Dallas College and our 18 ISD partners. We're in about 168 schools, coming together, different systems that before the policy change of House Bill 3 and House Bill 8, we were doing this work and had to be really intentional about it. But the changing policy landscape provided a different incentives for all of us to be able to do this across the state, and that we could really be the model here in North Texas to how to do this in other parts of the state. And then certainly as students graduate from us with an associate's degree, and if they want to transfer to one of our university partners, we want to make sure that pipeline is also as smooth as it can be to transfer to a university. And that is also sometimes a challenge, different systems coming together, different expectations. And so there's, a patchwork quilt of policy around that, but it's imperfect. And so we decided let's try to figure it out as a region. And we created the Dallas Transfer Collaborative, brought in a number of our university partners, commit, help support that, initiative. Bringing our faculty members together to create meta majors to make it easier for students that may, make some changes within their programs to be able to more seamlessly transfer, and then putting some technology and data around that and behind that, so we know what's going on with students. Because the most expensive course that a student takes is one they have to repeat. Mm-hmm. And so we want to make sure that, and that's expensive to the student, that's expensive to the state, to taxpayers. And so we've worked really hard to lean left and lean right, with all of our partners to make sure that, it's as smooth as it can be for students.
That sounds great. Todd, we learned from the Strive organization around kind of governance and how we show up in a community. And I think we're, working on that advisory board and alignment council and using that, community governance structure. Mm-hmm. What are your hopes? How do we do that governance in Dallas well? What are your hopes for the advisory board and to kind of follow that Strive playbook that we come into this community and we help the community organize around this work and drive forward together?
Well, I think at the end of the day, progress moves at the speed of trust. There's tremendous expertise and tremendous resources and tremendous insights from around the region. No single institution has all the answers. And so I think a well-functioning advisory board is one that recognizes that, where people, when they come into the room, they put their institution at the door and they come in with what is best for kids, and everything is student-centered. And I think that's what we've created. And I think we're going to continue to add to that advisory board. But the key thing also is we're bringing data to the table. Are we making progress? If so, where? Where are we not making progress? What can we change? How can we address? Is it a policy solution? Is it a resource solution? Do we just do something differently? Where can we learn from somewhere else where they're getting better results potentially? How do we incorporate that? But it is an agreement among many people who could do many other things with their time to say, we can solve this problem faster if we do it together. And so that's kind of what I hope will come out of this, and is coming out, and will continue to come out of this, our advisory board.
Yeah. I think, Justin, you have some pretty bold goals around, your Vision 2030. I know we had an advisory board sponsored executive lunch in the fall we put out a few big ideas, including by 2030, getting 50% of our students to 15 credits and really working on that and having those credits have durable skills aligned to employer needs. And, Dallas College, a lot of people lean on you because, you have to have the programming comes from you that is adaptable and workforce aligned. So how does the advisory board maybe help Dallas College show up and, help everyone row together?
Well, certainly, as Todd said, it helps inform us all. It helps us to inform members of the community of the multitude of things that are going on. But as you said, certainly we are at the center of much of this work, and we do have ambitious goals as part of the Dallas College 2030 plan to enroll 180,000 students at that time, to produce 100,000 additional credentials over that time, and certainly as it relates to the credentials production, what I can tell you is we're way ahead of target, and I think it is because of this joint collective work that we're doing. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that's at risk is the economy in North Texas. If we don't get this right, that's what's at stake. In a region that has 500 people a day moving here, we're importing a lot of jobs, importing a lot of talent, importing a lot of skills. But we need to make sure that there's not a growing divide between the have and the have-nots, and that people, again, recognize the pathway of opportunities that exist because of this collective work we're doing.
Yeah. And I know we're making some big bets to try to get the students earlier, in partnership with Education is Freedom and all our community partners. And Todd, we went and saw Tennessee, and Tennessee worked with seniors, and we worked with seniors for a long time. This is the first year we started to plan and reach out and start to activate freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And we're learning. We're going to get better at it.
Right.
What are some of your hopes? Like, what does this look like in 2030? When it's working to your, kind of a vision for you, when the promise of economic mobility is working a lot better?
I'm a big believer that the power of an adult who believes in a kid is unbelievable. And I think that the earlier that we can talk to kids about their possibilities. I grew up in a neighborhood where I probably never traveled more than 3 miles from my home. I didn't know what the world existed outside of my neighborhood. And so there are lots of kids that are growing up like that. And I think if we are very intentional about exposing them to jobs and industries and career paths that really excite them based on their strengths and their personal interests, they're going to be more likely to stay in school. They're going to complete and get their high school degree. They're going to be more engaged in pursuing a pathway at Dallas College or a 4-year partner or workforce training, et cetera. But I think the sooner in a child's journey we can expose them to all the possibilities of a vibrant economy like North Texas provides them, the better off we're all going to be. Because if they believe that it's possible, they're going to drive and work hard for it. And we just have to make sure we've got a system that supports that.
Yeah. Justin, often people come to Dallas College and really stretch you in the college because you are at the center. And so there's a lot of competing needs. How can the Center for the Economic Mobility Center, what we set up here, help you sort of work with partners in a better way? How do you see kind of the lanes being defined better, where we're all kind of working together with more coherence? And maybe we look back from 2030, what does it sort of look like then when it's functioning better and, we're on a journey together?
Well, I think the answer is a little bit in the question. It is helping to smooth out the different partners that are a part of this in our collective work together, to understand the paths that we're all on together, and the outcomes we're trying to get to together. And again, data is obviously a big part of this. That's the backbone of much of it. I'm hopeful that we continue to create new innovative ways around technology to personalize much of this for individual users. That takes off some of the weight on institutions that are having to do some things in different sort of ways. But if we personalize it in a way that works better for students, and I think that, as I look to 2030, that we've built some of those tools, that we personalized it, and that of course then the ultimate outcome is that we've raised the opportunity for skills and credentials, and made a difference in the poverty rate in this community.
Yeah, and I think the data and the systems really have to work for people. And a good example today, we're getting very close to a vision that students and families and our systems have. A lot of times our advisors run around with students trying to get documents and throw them over the fence. And in partnership with Dallas College and Dallas ISD, we really sat down together and said, when a student applies, how does their information come over seamlessly so that they're registration ready? And I think we're, at the last mile to complete that with planning together.
Well, that's the kind of work that will make a huge difference, because, each of our systems, we have different requirements. Some of these things are mandated that we have to do, or we have our own things that can be potential barriers along the way. And so understanding those things together better so we can remove those barriers for students. And so, they're not feeling like they've got to throw whatever amount of paperwork over the next fence at the next institution. But the other thing, going back to something that Todd was referencing, is absolutely oftentimes students don't know the multitude of opportunities that exist. And again, Dallas College, we're certainly a big, complicated system. And so, with 400 different programs, it's hard to know what is the right path. How do I understand differently and better? And so that's what's great about this work that we're doing, and the work we're doing with Education and Freedom is part of this, to help give exposure to what those paths of opportunity can look like. We had a student one time, I remember, that came to our Health Careers Resource Center that said, I want to be a nurse because I love that TV show Grey's Anatomy, but I don't like blood. And we said, okay, well, here are the other programs in allied health. Do you know what a rad tech is and what a career can look like with that and how much you can earn as a rad tech? Well, of course not. There's not TV shows about rad techs. But that's the path that she went down and has been very successful in doing that. And so getting to students earlier in this process, younger as they're younger in their journey, to begin to open their eyes so they can explore that by the time that they can get to our collective doors, that maybe they've got a sense, and then it's easier to help remove those other barriers that may be in the way.
Yeah. And thinking about the end game, Todd, we have a vision and some work going on in terms of employer engagement, and a lot of people are doing that in the ecosystem. And a lot of those people doing that are on our advisory board. We talked about that. What are some of your hopes related to employer engagement and trying to connect these, the demand to supply a lot better and smarter?
Nobody understands the benefits of an industry than the employers themselves. And I really hope to envision an environment where our employers are actively creating collateral material, flyers, videos, et cetera, TikTok videos, et cetera, that sell their field to impressionable students so that they can be exposed to it. No one will sell it better than they can because they live and breathe it every day and they know the pros and cons of what it can offer. And it gives them an opportunity to really try and make their best case for why you should choose that field versus any other field. And we want our kids, and again, technology is going to be really important. How do we bring those employer experiences and possibilities to kids who, like me, grow up and live within a 3-mile radius of where you grow up? We've got to figure out how to use technology to bring those industries into that student's life and expose them to the possibilities. That's kind of what I hope most of all.
Yeah. And Justin, you guys are doing significant work on employer engagement and sector strategies. So what are some of your hopes?
So we did launch the North Texas Edge initiative, which is leading across about 9 different industry sectors for the entire region. Our campus presidents are leading those, bringing industry partners together from those sectors around the table, competitors oftentimes around the table together. So we can look at labor market intelligence data together. We can try to understand what the needs that they may have and how does that align with our programs. Dallas College may or may not be an answer, but we want to make sure we understand. And as much as anything, also what we're learning is our ability to begin to forecast together. So in the healthcare sector, Parkland Hospital says, I need 5 rad techs by Tuesday, whereas Children's says, well, maybe I need 8 over the next 5 years. We can begin to forecast and plan together. And the other thing about bringing these industry leaders together, we have industry champions that are part of each of these, bringing them together is that what is oftentimes happening is they steal talent from each other.
Mm-hmm.
They recruit from each other, and that's expensive for them to be able to do. So instead, coming together and say, let's invest together on the front end within programs and within skills to provide skills, then that's cheaper to do that on the front end and produce that pipeline together and stop that, stealing and trying to one-up salaries amongst industries.
That's a huge benefit to growing the size of the pie.
Yeah.
I see it within the education world today where, teachers are now being recognized and paid based for their proficiency level, and districts are using that data to recruit them from each other. Instead of how do we collectively grow the pie together? Because ultimately right now there isn't enough talent. We have too many uncertified teachers, et cetera. So how can we collectively solve that problem together by growing the pie?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some fun stuff. We've got some great data in the ecosystem, some people really getting work done on behalf of students. Commit is sponsoring the Economic Mobility Awards for year 2.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of districts and a lot of high schools advancing. Garland did an amazing job last year because of their improved college readiness testing and improved enrollment work. Also the policies working. So they went from 1.7 million to 4.2 million
Mm-hmm.
in outcomes bonus dollars because the money follows the results.
Right.
And so Commit does such a great job of setting the table and being that community space for celebration. How do we have fun? Great communities know how to celebrate, and we have a lot of great results happening in Dallas County. So Todd, what's Commit doing on that side a little bit in terms of elevating the work?
I think, we'll do our Economic Mobility Summit in the fall. We're getting ready to do a Dallas County Promise update where we'll be highlighting bright spots. And think about this. When we started this work, when Commit was formed back in 2012, collectively as a region, only about 10% of our 8th graders were getting a post-secondary degree or credential by the age of 24, 10 years later. Now we're up to districts producing 10% kids with associate degrees by the time they get to high school diploma. They got 6 more years left to continue to build upon that. That's the kind of change that's occurring. We've grown living wage attainment in this region from 22 to 32%. We've almost cut young adult poverty in half. Doesn't mean we're done because we're not. But at the end of the day, I think the way you keep everybody at the table, including foundations, is they feel like we're all collectively making progress. And sometimes you gotta make sure you're always bringing attention to that and you're celebrating it. And because frankly, at the end of the day, this work is going to get accomplished by adults who get up each and every day to serve kids. And they work really hard. And sometimes there's barriers that the systems have created that makes their work harder. And so when they knock down those barriers, he's in the barrier busting business, if I remember right, you got to celebrate it. Right. And it just keeps a sense of we're all making collectively, progress together.
Yeah. And Justin, we had a conversation where I was running some numbers, Dallas County is about 10% of the state, and you're producing over 20% of the associate degrees that are produced in high school in the state.
Mm-hmm.
So with a population where, 3 out of 4 students are economically disadvantaged in Dallas County. So how are you celebrating with your teams knowing this work's hard and we got a lot of work to do, but at the same point, there's good work going on?
Well, you're right. And there are so many great stories to tell that come out of this work about what the impact is. And so, yeah, we're certainly proud we're proud of those results. We're proud, of what we're doing in the community and what we're doing to help lead and model the way for the state. And you both heard me tell the American Airlines story many times before about the power of partnerships coming together. Certainly some of the work we've done at one of our PTECs that, American Airlines, as the industry partner there, hired that entire cohort of students to go to work for American. And so you think about that, you're an 18-year-old student who just graduated from DISD, get an associate's degree from Dallas College with zero debt, and this major employer who you probably wouldn't have gotten to interact with otherwise, but for this partnership has hired you. But the more impactful part of this, the part that we all need to recognize and celebrate, is that the salary that those students were hired as starting salary was more than double the average family household income that those students came from. So that's the power of what we're doing, the power of partnerships coming together to do things like impact generational poverty. And that's why I go back to, it's nothing short of the economy that's at stake for us to get this right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Operating at scale. Maybe the last thing, and we'll ask you, is just how will we know that the promise of economic mobility has become part of the culture and is truly sustainable? We're on this journey and it feels like, you're getting up every day, working on it, have to celebrate because there are very good things happening, but we have a lot of work to do. When will you know that we're on a path and this is going to be a sustainable way that the community operates?
I'll just start by a couple of things, and some of it we're already seeing, which is school districts view themselves and publicly state that their role is the chief engine of economic mobility in their community. They are actively talking about it. They're talking about it at their board. We're actually tracking the data, and they're celebrating what's happening to their kids after they leave high school versus just the simple act, which is not so simple sometimes, of high school graduation. That's clearly one thing. Secondarily, I think the foundations are excited about the difference that we all collectively made. And I think it's just, it would be hard for us to imagine that there was a period of time back prior to when all this work started because of all the collective efforts that have been made. And the final thing I'd say is that, what's also exciting about is the number of calls and inbound inquiries that I get and what we're trying to do about how can I replicate what you're doing in Dallas in another part of the state. They're excited about it. They want to understand the playbook. If it was easy, it would have already been done. So it's complicated. But at the end of the day, we've created the conditions where no one goes to school every day thinking about how did you pass a certain standardized test. They want to know that they're effectively enabling kids to transform their lives and into a career in a field that's exciting to them, aligns with their interests, etc. And so I think that's kind of what it's going to be, a series of lots of different signals versus one big giant signal.
Great. Justin?
Yeah, well, I'll go with, the aspirational and some would say impossible, but that is every individual, every student knows that there are no barriers for them. Every student knows that there's a path of opportunity, that they can get into the educational pipeline, whether it's Dallas College or one of our partners, and say, I can pursue my dreams. I can have a bright future. I can have not just a job, but a career that changes the trajectory of my family, allows me to support my family in the future and create wealth for my kids. And so that's the path that I want to see, is that every individual says, I can do this.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And the good news is we have a senior exit survey, which last year 70% of our seniors took, and this year we're hoping to get over 80%. So I think we're capturing a lot of the voices of our students as they move through our system, and we really need to pay attention to that as well and center, as you said, center the student on the work. Any closing thoughts? Just people listening and trying to understand the Dallas work. Is there anything, Todd, that I haven't questions I haven't asked that, you might want to help us, or Justin, just any parting thoughts here?
Well, I mean, I would certainly say to listeners, you too can be part of this. We need partners that are part of this, whether it's business and industry partners in workforce, whether it's other workforce credential providers, and certainly the philanthropic community that has been so supportive, as Todd has mentioned, and recognizing that we are, that it's success building on success, that we do have the power of public policy and public dollars supporting this work. And so I just encourage people to come to our websites and learn more about this work.
Great. Todd?
I would just echo what he said. And I think what's been most encouraging is how major foundations have stepped up. You think about the O'Donnell Foundation and the tremendous transformative gift that they made, but also Communities Foundation of Texas and JP Morgan Chase and Moody Foundation, et cetera. There is just a tremendous growing alignment behind what's happening here in Dallas. And so I would agree with Justin that more people can get engaged here. And I certainly want to continue to figure out how to get employers engaged even more than they are, and they are already. But this has been a huge challenge for our region and other regions like us for a long time. And I feel like we're getting real traction in this effort, but it doesn't mean we're done. And we got to make sure that more people are rowing in the same direction.
Great. Well, on behalf of the Economic Mobility Center, of which you helped to form, and our nonprofit group that wakes up every day really working hard to help the community come together and work on this, we just want to say thank you for your leadership and your trust in us. And we take that responsibility very sincerely and to our heart. And all of our collective wise are working on this work with you. Thank you for being here with Promise to Paycheck. And again, thanks to Dr. Justin Lonon and Todd Williams for kicking off our inaugural episode.
Glad to be with you.
Yep. Thank you, Eric.
Support our work by subscribing to Promise to Paycheck and sharing this episode with others committed to building pathways to living wage careers. Learn more about our work at economicmobilitycenter.org.